Have you ever noticed that some of the kindest people you know are also the most exhausted? They always show up, always smile warmly, and never say no when asked for help by anyone. But look closely and you will sense something heavier behind all that warmth and generous availability. We picture kindness as purely good and uncomplicated. Yet like everything in this human world, it carries its own shadow side. Ignoring that shadow, pretending it does not exist, slowly turns kindness into something genuinely and quietly destructive over time. We teach children to be kind from the very start. We admire kindness in our leaders and measure our own humanity by how much compassion we extend to others we encounter. But kindness, like all things genuinely human, carries real complexity beneath its surface. When its shadow goes unexamined, and we pretend darkness cannot accompany generosity, kindness can quietly become harmful and destructive. That change never announces itself. It happens in small and invisible ways across many years of steady and unrecognized self-sacrifice. It begins small, and it begins quite early in life. A child discovers that being agreeable and helpful earns love and affection. When they set aside their own needs to make others comfortable, they receive smiles and praise they might not otherwise get. Over time, this lesson buries itself deep inside the nervous system. Kindness becomes survival. The older they grow, the harder it becomes to separate who they truly are from who others always expect them to be. Identity and real self blur into something nearly impossible to fully untangle. They become the reliable one, the consistently good friend, the person who never ever complains or makes any demands at all on anyone. But here is the truth, buried beneath all that admirable identity. When kindness is driven by fear of rejection or a desperate need to feel valued and loved, it stops being pure. It has become a mask worn to protect a fragile interior. And masks, no matter how beautiful they look to those watching from outside, slowly suffocate the real and complicated person faithfully wearing them every single day far too long. Think of the endlessly giving people in your life right now. They listen for hours, help you move apartments, lend money they cannot easily spare, and sacrifice their own rest to make sure you feel all right and cared for. At first, this all seems admirable, even genuinely saintly in a way. But if you have ever truly lived that particular role yourself, you already know the buried truth waiting underneath all of it. Behind every act of self-sacrifice hides a quiet inner voice that persistently whispers, "What about me? When is it finally my turn?" Psychologists call the result compassion fatigue. It describes what happens when someone gives so much empathy that they run completely dry. Healthcare workers face it daily. Teachers face it deeply. Parents face it too. But so do everyday people who simply identify as kind souls. Research shows that those who consistently place others above themselves report higher rates of anxiety, depression, and physical illness compared to those maintaining any reasonable balance between generous giving and honest self-protection at all. Kindness without limits becomes a form of self-erasure. It resembles watering every plant in a garden while neglecting your own roots entirely. Eventually, the gardener collapses from sheer exhaustion, and when the gardener falls, the entire garden suffers along with them. This darker truth rarely gets spoken aloud in polite company. Kindness that lacks honest boundaries is not truly kindness at all. It is slow and invisible self-destruction wearing a generous and admirable disguise that fools almost everyone who sees it from outside. There is also a more unsettling dimension worth examining. Sometimes kindness functions as an unconscious weapon, not in the obvious way of manipulating others deliberately, but in a quieter and unintentional fashion. When you become known as the reliable, kind one, people begin expecting your generosity without question. They organize their lives around your availability. without anyone intending any harm. Something important shifts inside how the relationship operates and what everyone silently comes to expect from you. Without deliberate intention, your consistent kindness teaches those around you that your needs are secondary and your feelings are always negotiable. Over time, they stop asking what you want because they assume you will adjust to whatever suits them. The kind person ends up quietly training the entire world to overlook them completely and without guilt whatsoever. This creates a painful paradox. The more generously you give to everyone around you, the more thoroughly invisible you gradually and inevitably become to all of them in return. Invisibility is loneliness, carefully dressed in practiced politeness, and a well-maintained smile. None of this means kindness should be abandoned or feared. Genuine kindness remains one of the most powerful forces available to human beings in their dealings with each other. But there is a vital difference between kindness that flows from real abundance and kindness that bleeds steadily from a place of quiet emptiness. One heals those around it. The other corrodes the person offering it day after day without rest or replenishment. Research from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who struggle to refuse requests, often those most identifying as kind and agreeable, are significantly more likely to experience burnout over time. The connection between habitual yes-saying and deep emotional exhaustion is clear and thoroughly documented across studies. The inability to say no does not protect relationships from harm. It quietly and steadily destroys the very person who keeps saying yes to absolutely everyone who asks anything of them. A study from the University of Berkeley confirmed that altruistic behavior genuinely increases well-being, but only when it is freely and authentically chosen. When kindness is performed out of guilt, obligation, or fear of disappointing others, it produces precisely the opposite result. It measurably lowers happiness and raises stress in the giver. We give generously, hoping to feel better, but obligated giving makes us feel considerably worse over time. Yet so many of us remain locked inside this exhausting cycle indefinitely. We keep saying yes because we dread disappointing others we care about. We keep giving because we fear being seen as selfish. We keep sacrificing because somewhere deep inside we believe love must be earned through constant service and ready availability. The cost is enormous and accumulates invisibly over the years. Slowly we lose clear sight of who we actually are beneath all the giving. You stop knowing what you want for yourself. Your entire identity becomes organized solely around serving the needs of everyone else around you. When you suppress your own needs long enough and deny your honest frustrations in the name of kindness, those feelings do not simply vanish at all. They gather quietly in the shadows, ferment, and eventually demand to be seen. Maybe the buildup surfaces as snapping at someone you love over something trivially small. Maybe it leaks through passive-aggressive comments or low-grade resentment coloring every interaction. Or perhaps after years of suppression, it erupts all at once, leaving you genuinely shocked by the person you have become. We prefer to believe kindness shields us from our own inner darkness. But unexamined, boundaryless kindness creates the ideal conditions for that darkness to grow and deepen. Every hollow yes when your body says no, every smile worn over real tears, every truth swallowed to keep others comfortable, is not kindness at all. It is quiet self-abandonment. And abandonment, even when self-inflicted, always carries serious consequences that builds invisibly over many long years, until they can no longer be contained or ignored by anyone. Why do kind people struggle so deeply with setting any limits? The answer lives inside our cultural conditioning. From childhood, many of us learn that kindness equals worthiness. Being agreeable feels safer than being authentic. Love is framed as something earned through what you give rather than something belonging to you for who you are. Children raised in homes where affection depends on performance or self-sacrifice carry that conditioning directly and unexamined into their adult lives, relationships, and daily patterns. They become adults who confuse people-pleasing with genuine kindness. But real kindness does not require steady erasure of the self. True kindness honestly includes the self. When your giving consistently costs you your mental health, your joy, and your basic energy, it has become something genuinely dangerous. Neuroscience offers clarity here. The brain contains a mirror neuron system that makes empathy neurologically possible. It activates when we witness others experiencing real pain or deep distress and responds powerfully. When you witness someone in real pain, your brain responds similarly to when you yourself are in pain. This is why kindness feels so natural and instinctive to most of us. We are wired for genuine connection and real care. But mirror neurons cannot distinguish between healthy empathy and the kind that quietly destroys the person practicing it. They simply respond to suffering. When you expose yourself continuously and without any protection at all to the pain of others, your nervous system floods with chronic and compounding stress signals. Eventually, that sustained exposure leads to measurable immune problems, profound emotional exhaustion, and persistent anxiety affecting every part of daily life. Your brain is simply not designed for endless and boundaryless giving. It requires balanced connection, the kind that genuinely includes rest, honest limits, and care directed inward alongside care directed outward. The dark side of kindness is not that kindness itself is harmful. It is that kindness can be twisted by fear and conditioning into something that hollows you. What appears noble from the outside slowly destroys the person faithfully practicing it. The trait most celebrated as their greatest strength becomes, for the person carrying it alone, the very force that finally and completely breaks them. If you have ever felt this particular bone-deep exhaustion, the invisible resentment, the sense that no one truly sees you even as everyone calls you so kind, you are not broken or defective. You are experiencing the natural result of a world that never properly taught you how to maintain any balance. The monster within you is not evidence of wickedness. It is evidence of how long your own genuine needs went completely unmet and unheard by yourself and everyone around you. This brings us to the essential question. How do we genuinely embrace kindness without allowing it to consume and destroy us from within? How do we remain truly compassionate without becoming self-appointed martyrs over time? How do we love others fully without abandoning ourselves entirely in the process? The answer is not found in becoming less kind or generous. It is found in understanding where that kindness truly originates and at what real cost it is being offered day after day and year after year. The answer begins with one simple but profoundly uncomfortable truth. Genuine kindness must start with you. Not in any self-centered disregard for others, but in the clear understanding that if your kindness never honestly includes yourself, it is not truly kindness at all. It has become performance, and performance eventually collapses when no one has enough energy remaining to sustain it. Think about the airplane safety instruction every passenger hears before departure. Put your own oxygen mask on before helping others around you. At first, that sounds morally backwards. Why help yourself before your own child or your dearest companion? But the logic is completely undeniable. If you lose consciousness, you simply cannot help anyone at all. That precise principle applies directly to the daily practice of kindness in your life. You cannot pour anything meaningful from a vessel that is completely empty of everything. This is where honest limits enter the conversation. For many naturally giving people, the very word boundary feels threatening and uncomfortable. Limits feel like rejection directed at people you care about. They feel like coldness or selfishness you were taught to avoid and feel ashamed of. They feel like closing doors on people you genuinely love. But in honest reality, a clear and compassionate limit is the most genuine form of communication you can ever offer another person. It says, clearly and honestly, this is what I can give. A boundary says your love is real, but it cannot survive if you are running completely on empty. It says you care enough to be honest about your actual limits, because without that honesty, your care will eventually curdle into quiet resentment that poisons everything. Psychologists describe boundaries as the invisible lines defining where you end and where another person begins. Without those lines, relationships blur into dependency, silent suffering, or patterns of subtle manipulation that neither person fully recognizes at the time. With healthy and honestly maintained limits, relationships gain clarity, real mutuality, and a lasting foundation of authentic respect. Research consistently shows that people who establish and honor their own limits experience deeper and more meaningful connections. Their kindness flows from genuine free choice, rather than compulsion or quiet fear. When you offer a yes from true and unforced willingness, that yes carries real and lasting meaning for everyone who receives it from you and benefits from your honest and freely given care. People who respect their own limits are perceived as more trustworthy by those around them. When they say yes, everyone understands it is real, freely given, and genuinely meant. Their kindness carries no faint undercurrent of buried obligation or suppressed resentment. It feels authentically and freely chosen. That quality is far more sustaining than endless availability could ever manage to be over time. But honoring your limits is also about learning to say a genuine yes to your own legitimate needs and desires on a regular basis. That shift can feel deeply uncomfortable if you have spent your entire life measuring your worth through constant selflessness and service to others. It may feel as though you are betraying the very identity others have long admired in you. Some people will push back against any change they observe. That resistance and potential loss is genuinely painful to face and accept honestly, but it is entirely necessary for your continued survival and authentic growth as a person. Relationships built on your endless giving were never truly balanced. They were sustained purely by your steady depletion. When you finally begin honoring your own needs, you discover which connections were genuine and which were simply feeding from your willingness to sacrifice everything. There is a concept called pathological altruism. It describes situations where the desire to help actually causes harm, either to the helper themselves or to the person, ostensibly being helped through constant rescuing and unrelenting self-sacrifice that prevents any real growth or independence whatsoever. Someone sacrificing physical health to care for others, constant rescuing that prevents another person from developing independence or resilience. This pattern looks like kindness from outside, but it quietly creates guilt, dependency, and exhaustion for everyone caught inside it. This connects to the cultural mythology of the good person. Many societies idealize kindness as the highest human virtue, but often in ways that subtly and persistently encourage self-erasure as its natural and expected companion and logical outcome. Consider how frequently praise sounds like this. She never causes trouble. He always helps everyone without complaint. Hidden inside those compliments is a dangerous assumption that true goodness requires never making demands and never disrupting peace. But authentic goodness is not about making yourself small. It is about showing up as your full, honest self while still deliberately choosing compassion from that whole and grounded place. When kindness flows from real authenticity, it genuinely liberates everyone involved. When kindness flows from deep fear or a desperate need to be accepted, it quietly enslaves all parties involved. The crucial difference between those two expressions of kindness changes absolutely everything about the relationship and the person offering it. So what can you practically do to shift from kindness that slowly enslaves toward the kind that genuinely sets everyone free? The first essential practice is to pause deliberately before responding to any request. Give yourself real space to honestly check in with your genuine needs. Even a brief conscious pause can interrupt the deeply ingrained habit of automatic people-pleasing that has governed your responses for many years. This pause is not hesitation or coldness. It represents the conscious choice to respond honestly rather than react from old fear-based conditioning. A yes that arrives after genuine reflection carries far greater weight and meaning than a reflexive yes born from anxiety or from dread of someone else feeling disappointed. The second practice is learning the real power of a compassionate no. A clear refusal does not need to be harsh or harmful to any relationship worth having. It can be offered with genuine warmth and complete honesty at the same time. Saying I care about you but truly cannot take this on right now is both truthful and kind simultaneously. The world does not crumble when you decline. Your honest refusals actually make your wholehearted agreements far more meaningful and genuinely trustworthy to everyone who receives them. The third practice is reframing your fundamental and intrinsic sense of personal worth. Your value as a human being is not determined by how much you give away or how endlessly useful you make yourself to others. Your value is intrinsic and completely unconditional. You existed before anyone needed anything from you. You were already worthy before you first learned to perform kindness as a survival strategy for securing love and acceptance from those around you. You remain entirely worthy when you rest, when you say no, when you take absolutely nothing on. Nothing given or withheld changes your fundamental worth as a person. The fourth practice involves actively tending to your own inner life and energy. Fill yourself with what genuinely nourishes and restores you. Seek friendships that give back as much as they receive. Pursue creative work that lights something alive inside you. Create real moments of genuine stillness and restorative rest. When you live from abundance rather than constant scarcity, kindness flows naturally and freely once again. It becomes a gift freely and joyfully offered to those you love rather than a debt endlessly owed and extracted. The fifth practice is allowing yourself to genuinely feel the more difficult emotions you have been suppressing. The anger, frustration, grief, and sadness you keep pushing down. These feelings are not enemies of kindness. They are essential signals from within yourself. They tell you when your limits are being crossed and when your needs are being ignored. Suppressed indefinitely, they become bitterness and resentment. Honestly heard and respected, they become wise and completely reliable guides toward real and lasting balance. Let us return one final time to the image of the mask. For many kind and giving people, kindness has slowly become a lifelong performance worn so consistently that it feels inseparable from real identity itself. The practiced smile worn to conceal complete exhaustion. The reflexive yes offered to avoid any conflict. The performed generosity displayed to prove ongoing worth. Masks are genuinely heavy things to carry. And the longer you wear one without ever setting it down, the harder remembering your own real face honestly becomes. The real journey ahead is not about discarding kindness or becoming cold and deliberately withholding toward others. It is about carefully removing the mask you have been wearing and allowing genuine kindness to rise naturally from the truest and most honest version of who you are. The version that can offer both yes and no with equal honesty, equal grace, and equal genuine care. The version that is truly kind without disappearing in the process. That particular kindness does not diminish or shrink you. It expands you fully and completely. There is a timeless observation worth returning to one more time. If you truly want to understand who you are at your deepest core, Look carefully at how you treat yourself when absolutely no one is watching and no reward is waiting for you at all. That private and unobserved inner space is precisely where authentic kindness either lives and grows or quietly goes missing entirely. Not in the approval of others, not in the praise of being called so wonderfully kind and giving, but in the quiet daily choices made for your own genuine well-being. Do you rest when your body and mind are truly exhausted and genuinely asking for relief? Do you forgive yourself gently when you make mistakes, as you would so readily do for someone you deeply love? Do you speak to yourself with real and honest compassion rather than relentless self-criticism? If not, then your kindness toward others rests on a fragile and unsustainable foundation. Self-kindness is not a reward earned only after everyone else has been fully tended and satisfied. It is the necessary beginning point of all genuine kindness. The beautiful irony is this: when you begin treating yourself with real kindness, your generosity toward others does not weaken or diminish. It becomes stronger, more genuine, and far more sustainably available over time, because it flows from real personal overflow rather than from continuous unacknowledged depletion. It naturally inspires those around you rather than quietly exhausting you over time. It invites others to grow alongside you rather than simply leaning on you without any honest limit or reciprocity whatsoever. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson woven through everything explored here. The dark side of kindness is not an argument for abandoning compassion or becoming less caring. It is a sincere invitation to transform kindness from within, from elaborate performance into something truly and authentically sustainable, from fearful compulsion into genuinely chosen care, from a survival strategy born in fear into a living expression of love that fully and honestly includes yourself alongside every other beloved and important person in your life. So the next time someone sincerely tells you that you are so wonderfully kind, pause for just one quiet moment before accepting that compliment without any real reflection whatsoever. Ask yourself honestly and with courage, is this kindness flowing from real freedom or from long-practiced fear? From genuine abundance or from deep exhaustion I have learned to disguise? From the comfortable mask worn for so many years, or from the real person I actually am underneath everything I have spent so long carefully performing for the world? The real monster within kind people is not their honest anger, frustration, or human need for personal limits. The real monster causing the most lasting damage is chronic and unacknowledged self-neglect. It is the slow and steady erosion of self that happens when someone gives endlessly to everyone around them without ever once turning that same generosity honestly inward toward themselves. But once you see it clearly and finally choose to set down that heavy mask, something unexpected and genuinely beautiful begins to happen inside you. Your kindness does not disappear or fade when you stop performing it from a place of deep exhaustion and quiet fear. It grows stronger, cleaner, and more genuinely radiant than it has ever been before in your life. It becomes the particular kind of kindness that does not merely keep others alive but honestly keeps you alive and truly whole as well. To live fully and openly as your real self, without constantly erasing or apologizing for your genuine needs and honest limits, is perhaps the ultimate act of compassion any of us can offer the world. This is what becomes possible when you finally face the dark side of your own kindness with real courage and genuine honesty. Not less compassion for others, but more compassion for yourself alongside everyone you care about. Not the abandonment of your generous nature, but its genuine and lasting transformation into something real, sustainable, and freely given from a genuinely full and honest heart. You discover that taking care of yourself was never selfishness at all. It was always the essential foundation upon which all genuine and lasting kindness rests and grows. Real compassion is not self-erasure, it is truth. And truth, offered clearly and with genuine love, is the kindness this world needs most of all. Not endless yeses given from quiet depletion and deep desperation. Not silent suffering worn as a badge of virtue. Not the slow collapse of a kind soul who never learned to honestly protect what was most precious within themselves. The world needs kindness that genuinely lasts because it flows from a person who is truly and fully and deeply honest and alive within themselves every single day. The kind person who has finally learned to tend their own inner garden waters others with real abundance and genuine joy rather than concealed resentment and growing exhaustion. They bring their whole and honest self to every relationship. They say yes when they truly mean it and no when they must, and everyone around them is genuinely enriched by both answers equally. Their presence becomes a gift freely offered rather than a service endlessly demanded. They live from wholeness rather than from invisible and unacknowledged sacrifice. So begin today. Not with a dramatic overhaul of everything you have ever been or done. Begin with one small and honest pause before the next automatic yes. Begin with one gentle no offered with genuine warmth and without apology. Begin with one real moment of rest taken without guilt or self-judgment. Begin by speaking to yourself with the same basic compassion you have always so freely offered to others who needed you. The kindness this world needs most begins exactly there, in that quiet and profoundly revolutionary act of honestly including yourself